Hi, Grandpa.
Hey, kiddo, I got you a toy.
Oh, yeah? What'd you get?
You know those robots that blow each other up and change into things?
Yeah, transform. You got a transformer?
No. Got you a bank.
A bank, huh? All right, I guess that's cool. I mean, it looks pretty cool. I guess it rolls pretty easy. I guess I could roll it down the driveway.
No, you can't do that. It's a toy. You don't play with it.
Wait a minute. I thought you just said it's a toy?
Yeah, it's a toy. It looks like a real car.
Okay. So what does it do then?
You just sit it on the shelf like this and you look at it.
See. Ertl. It's the official collectible toy of your grandfather. Not that there's anything wrong with your grandfather, it's just grandfathers didn't always realize that a toy not only was a miniature version of something else, but, they would also have some kind of play value. And these things don't exactly have play value. As a matter of fact, they're awful fragile and probably shouldn't be played with by little kids, because then you end up with ridiculous playware like this one. These are the Ertl banks. Often came with company logos on the side. And was a special right out of the J.C. Whitney or Eastwood catalog. I think my grandfather picked up most of these when True Value was actually a store. I'm pretty sure they're defunct now, right along with Montgomery Ward's. I think my grandfather liked Montgomery Ward's. Regardless, Ertl Company. Okay, maybe a little history into the Ertl Company. Been around since 1945. It's not exactly around anymore, as it was bought out by Racing Champions in 99, I believe. Racing Champions was a pretty big deal in the 90s, and Ertl wasn't. Ertl has always been known for making, farm equipment and construction equipment, die-cast toys. Not exactly, what a little kid wants to play with. My grandfather always bought Ertls. I remember having a few 1/64 scale die-cast tractors and hay balers when I was around 5 or 6. Yay. I guess. Anyway, Ertl had their hand in a lot of different stuff over the years, including model cars. Now, I'm thinking it might be a different company, because I know this is an Ertl casting. However, underneath it says it's from First Gear, but it's still based out of Iowa, which I believe is where Ertl was also based out of. So I'm thinking maybe it's called First Gear now. The company's probably switched hands a couple of times, and yada yada yada. It is no more, and freaking Iowa. Anyway, this is a collection of the die-cast banks my grandfather got me as a kid. I believe I started off with the Montgomery Ward's ones around 1984, 85. And I remember getting these for random holidays, and just sometimes at random if Grandpa felt like buying something, I guess. All the way through, I don't know, I'm saying 91, 92. So everything here is that old. Now what's really weird is Ertl is an American company, and the truck back here is made in the U.S. The Ertl die-cast cars I have that you saw in the Matchbox Hot Wheels car collection, I believe are made in the U.S. The banks, however, even with as heavy die-cast metals they are made in China. Every single one is made in China, which is weird, I think, for such an American company that made, farm equipment and big rig trucks. Oh, it's so weird. Anyway. The detail doesn't leave a whole lot to be desired, for sure. The detail is really pretty good. I'm getting close and you can see all the metal rivets, the door plates in between the frame looks pretty good. The wheels are period correct. They don't have like toy wheels on them. The wheels actually look like the wheels that were on this model would be the 1926 M.A.S.K Bulldog truck. You can see the slots up here. They all have these the slots for the change, like a 10-year-old would have a whole lot of change laying around. If I did have a whole lot of change, I usually spend it on Matchbox cars. Underneath, the detail doesn't stop. As a matter of fact, it's got the old chain drive. And then obviously a hole where you can evacuate your change. This one doesn't have the cap on it. See if I can find one that does actually still have the cap on it. Hey, that one even still got the key. Now I have some copies of these. Obviously, two of these. Two of those guys. I had two of those guys. I got two of those guys. Man, and two of those guys. It's because every time my grandfather bought one for me, he bought one for himself and displayed it at his house. However, I displayed them as a smaller child, but by the time I was 11, I was building models, and by the time I was 12, I had so many I had to take this stuff down, box it up, and have room to display all my model cars, which will be in a video later. The models included this old-timey Ford, whatever year that is. The horse-drawn carriages, which was the first one he gave me, which I was really confused. Oh, hey, I got you a toy. Do you like it? Oh, yeah, sure, It's nice with a horse on it. And I like race cars and robots. Sure, Moving on, I believe that one's a Chevy panel van. And then obviously the M.A.S.K Bulldog truck, which they've configured into panel, I guess you'd call it, box truck, or the open bed, or the stake bed. I'm sure there's different variations out there. The ones I've got, the variations that are in them, of course they all have paint variations, but the variations I have are True Value, Montgomery Ward's, IGA, and Country Time Lemonade. However, sold through Eastwood catalog and I believe J.C. Whitney, they came with all sorts of different product stickers on them. They had everything from AC Delco and GM Goodwrench to, oh god, what else did I see? That was a huge list, and some of them the companies are even defunct now because obviously they don't make these anymore. Well, I don't know, maybe they do, like I said with this one, but that doesn't have a company logo on it. But they certainly didn't have any kind of play value. The tires on them became pretty brittle after a very short time, especially if you played with them. Unfortunately, the copies that were mine as a kid, I didn't store very well. They were in a box just wrapped up in some newspaper, and these are actually all cleaned up for the video, except for the Country Time Lemonade one because it actually broke. But these are actually cleaned up for the video, and some of them didn't even clean up very well. The ones that were my grandfather's, I actually got after he passed, boxed them up properly, and those are the ones that are in much better condition. And I'll be posting a video later on how to box up and keep your collections and how not to. And these will probably be featured as in how not to box things up. But here are my Ertl banks. I don't have a whole lot of them. There's a few that have come up missing over the years. Like I said, these things came with all sorts of different company logos all over them. And of course, the color usually corresponded with the company logo. I decided to throw this guy in here because it's an Ertl and didn't really fit in with anything else. So hey, Ertl, 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 Ertl. Like I said, the Ertl company is no more. And so there you have it. There is the Ertl bank collection. Again, not quite sure why my grandfather would have bought that kind of stuff, but regardless, he was a great man. I love him, I miss him. He is now passed on, so these will probably stay in my collection and I'll pass them on to my kids. What's really odd is the fact that they're not worth hardly anything now. They're not hardly worth anything now, and I guess it was part of that whole collection boom that happened in the late 80s and all the way through the 90s. People would buy things because it said collectible on the box. The boxes even had a corresponding number. Underneath these is a number printed. You can't see it on that one. I'm not going to bother wasting your time looking for it, but they have a number printed on them underneath, and it corresponded with the number on the box. These things weren't really a low number production toy, so I'm kind of wondering what was the point of that. Maybe it was a gimmick. That's what I'm guessing. It certainly didn't add any value, as for the first time, as I was doing a little research before the video here, looked up the prices of them, and they don't really go for that much, even the really older ones. But yeah, it was this whole deal with the collection things in the 90s and late 80s. It started with like the coins and whatnot, and Beanie Babies, and whatever was collectible then. And the bottom really fell out of that whole market because they just saturated the market with crap, overproduced stuff they didn't make a whole lot of. They were collectibles, so no one. Everyone saved them and tried to keep them in pristine shape so they'd be worth something later. But when you do that with a whole lot of stuff that's come out, and it's not actually used, it doesn't carry any value. And then, later on, stuff like this, the die cast, the coins, the baseball cards, anything collectible, it's pretty well worthless now. You really have to have something special for it to be worth any kind of money. But that's just a rant. Maybe I'll do a video later on of, how what makes things collectible and what they don't. And these, I guess, are collectible. They're just not worth a whole lot of money anymore. They never were, actually. I think they cost more new than... I think some of these cost more new than what they're worth now. And, this is 20 years later? 20, 25? Yeah, you're 25, some of these pushing 30 years later. And, they're still not worth a whole lot just because, everyone bought them, and I'll quit ranting. Anyway, one bad Decepticon here. I got some more collections coming because I cleaned out a huge storage area, so stay tuned, guys. Like, subscribe, all that happy stuff. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.